let's talk about another troubling health alert. You thinking about going on a cruise? Did you hear that a second cruise ship was forced to return to port early because they suspected a norovirus outbreak? Dr. Siegel, you know, I actually reported on this, and I'm not really sure what norovirus is. Why is it different than other ailments?
Well, by the way, I reported on the first one and you reported on the second one. Norovirus was confirmed in the first outbreak from Royal Caribbean. And everyone's watching this news this week. You should know that only 9 ships had it last year and 3 ships so far this year. So in other words, of all the 20 million passengers that go every year on a cruise ship, your chances of getting norovirus remain quite low. Now, what is norovirus? You just asked me. It's the #1 cause of GI-related bugs in the country. Over 20 million people a year get it. It is the #1 cause of you having that nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, malaise, and the biggest problem with it is dehydration. Why does it occur so often?
On cruises. Why not on airplanes?
It is on airplanes. Listen, it's not only on cruises, it's all over the place. 20 million people in the country get it a year. Cruises is the thing we report on. But in the country, it's a huge problem because, Jamie, there's 2 reasons. #1, because the virus mutates all the time and changes all the time, so that you think you're immune, you're not immune. The next reason is that it only takes 14 particles of the virus to give it to you. Enormously contagious. But with the first cruise ship, we actually spoke to some passengers, and I want you to know it was really harrowing if you actually got one of these things. Let's watch.
We were at dinner, and all of a sudden started feeling nauseous and ill, feverish. We went back to our cabin and were sick. You know, without going into detail, we were sick.
They were constantly sanitizing, spraying everything. The banisters, the elevators, inside the elevators, everywhere you went, and you weren't allowed to touch anything. You couldn't take a plate, you couldn't take a napkin, you could take nothing. Everything had to be handed to you.
So actually, the big question for David is, how do you protect yourself from this?
Well, you know, the question is, this is a new kid around the block to some extent because of all the mutation. It's been around since 1970. They called it Norwalk virus because it started in Ohio. It's a very contagious, it's a very stubborn bug that, and also can sit around everywhere. It could be on this table, the doorknob, food, water, it's everywhere.
So what do you do? You wash your hands? Is that enough?
Well, the reason why we are having problem with this, even though they call it stomach flu, Eric, it's not any flu. Flu, you need about 1,000 particles to get it. This guy, you only need about 18. So how do you prevent it? It comes in for about 3 days. It's going to go on its own. You have all the, you know, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting. You need to avoid anything that you can avoid. Because you're touching everything, wash your hands. And what's interesting is the hand sanitizers may or may not work really well. I'm not sure why, but washing your hands for about 20 seconds is the way to go. And cook your food to 140 degrees because it doesn't disappear easily. If you feel something is contaminated, part of the kitchen, restaurants, cruise, this is in the areas where a lot of people actually constantly touching things, get rid of all of that food.
Everything's contaminated.
Well, look, you know, 21 million of cases a year.
On the ship, they controlled it, actually. CDC controlled it by making sure you only ate from the plates they gave you.
You're a passenger.
And 800 people die from this, believe it or not. So you want to...
The dehydration is the message. If you have the stomach virus or the norovirus, you may need to be hydrated even at a hospital with an IV bag.
Wash
Ringer's
your hands.
lactate.
That's the best advice. Wash your hands
all the time.
Sing happy birthday twice. You know,
I think that's the brushing your teeth.
Don't touch your mouth because you take it from your hands to your mouth, and that's how you.
It's all from touching.
Be careful, guys. Be careful.